Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Emily Sprenger. I'm a graduate learning specialist, and we're thrilled to have Dr. David Benders join us tonight for our Skill Up session, Evaluating Feasibility Before You Write Page 60 of Your Dissertation. Couple of housekeeping items. We are recording today's session. Dr. Benders has mentioned he will gladly provide the PowerPoint. I will send a copy of this recording and a PDF version of the PowerPoint to all registered attendees from today's session. We would love for you to have conversation in the chat, ask questions in the Q&A. If you need me for something technical, you can find me in the chat on your Zoom. Couple more things. We do have scrolling subtitles available. If you would like to, you're able to enable them at the bottom of your Zoom. And again, if you need help with that, just let me know. And I think that about does my housekeeping items, Dr. Benders. So we will take questions as time permits. And if Dr. Benders decides to pause, otherwise we'll grab some at the end. So Dr. Benders, over to you.
Thank you very much, Emily. Greetings, everyone. My name is David Benders. I'm one of the faculty members that work with the DCP students. And to quickly kind of give you a summation of what our DCP program is, it's our dissertation completion pathway. This program is designed for students who had been in a doctoral degree at a previous institution, and for whatever reason, they were unsuccessful in completing their dissertation, but they want to finish. So they come over to NU, and we created this program to help students finish their dissertation and finish their completion of their academic goal. So I primarily mainly, with them and helping them complete their dissertation. Feasibility is one of those presentations that I do often. I also participate and help with the boot camps. So students are familiar with the boot camps. They happen quarterly, and they happen at various different locations around the nation to help students with some questions and filling in some gaps, areas in regards to their dissertation to help them better understand these various different components, right? Everyone to know how all these components fit together, and that's the biggest challenge. The coursework that we take is very independent, and then we are asked to do this dissertation. And a lot of times you hear that, only 80% of students finish their dissertation. Don't finish their dissertation. And we always ask, well, why is that? Why is the number so low? Why is the statistics on this thing so daunting? And one of the things that we try to do I try to do when I talk to my students is make it all make sense. Bridge some of these parts together to see how it's not just arbitrary information that we just throw together because we read a book somewhere. But all these things are supposed to make sense. The purpose of this presentation today is to kind of have a step back. What if someone told you that you can kind of figure out all of your dissertation components prior to you writing page 1? And this is one of the thought processes in the planning stages that you should go through before you start to even write your dissertation, okay? So what is a dissertation? It is not a research paper. All your academic career, you've been doing what you thought was a research paper. And you'll go to the library, you come up with this idea, and you start writing. You go find some articles and some peer-reviewed journal articles, and you say, oh, this is wonderful. I'm writing this thing, and I'm writing this research paper. And that's not what you're doing. But you're actually been writing what we call as a position paper. And a position paper is fundamentally where you have an idea in your head, and then you go and find all these authors that agree exactly with what you said. They're telling you exactly what you want to hear. They're going in the direction that you said you want to go with a specific topic. And that is a position that you take. And then you grew up a little bit. You stayed in school for a little longer. You got your graduate degree and you started working, and you then started finding some opinions that didn't agree with you. So you threw them in the paper as well. But all you've really done is you really established that this is a position paper. And what's the difference? The difference is these ideas of research, we use these words, and now they actually mean something different when we're dealing with the dissertation. And it's very, very confusing, right? It's so confusing that we don't really know what it is. Research, position paper, I'm just supposed to be writing this paper, right? So what is a dissertation? A dissertation is something very, very simple. It is an academic exercise. This dissertation is not meant for you to save the world. It is not meant for you to come up with a new element. It's not meant for you to try to fix the education system, okay? It is not meant for you to save the world. It is simply an academic exercise, an assignment that is designed for you to demonstrate your understanding, how you explore, and how you apply the research process in a way of a document. That's it. That's all it is. And guess what? It is simply a demonstration of your research knowledge. Well, we say, well, why should we have to do this in this demonstration? Because it's the application part of all of the work that you've done during these academic courses. When you did these research classes and you looked at methodology and you looked at design, this is the exercise that's supposed to culminate all this stuff together, okay? It is not meant for you to save the world. So let's lower our expectations. If it's not meant for you to save the world, then what is it meant for you to do? It is also not meant for you to save education. Students come to me all the time as a student, they say, Dr. Benders, I have the answer on how we're going to fix the education system. Dr. Benders, I have the answer on how we're going to make corporate America more fiscally equitable. Dr. Benders, I have the answer for this and I have the answer for that. Guess what? You're going into this dissertation with the wrong mindset. But no one's ever told you that. No one's ever told you that the purpose of this thing is just to write a paper. It's just to write a paper. It is not meant for you to save the world. Okay, so I want everybody to write this down for me. And I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to get a piece of paper. I want you to write this down. I want you to save the world when you're not paying tuition. How's that? Save the world when you're not paying tuition. You know why? There's no need for you to pay tuition and try to save the world, because guess what? The world can't be saved. So save the world when you're not paying tuition. Fix the economic system when you're not paying tuition. Let's lower our expectations on what this big thing is all about, right? And why? Because we think, oh my God, Dr. Benders has to be the smartest guy in the world. He's got a doctorate degree, right? Let's lower your expectations just a little bit. Because all it means, me having a doctorate degree, you know what it really means? It really, really fundamentally means this. I've been in school a long time. Nothing more, nothing less. Think about it. How many times have you met a person with a doctorate degree? And you were sitting there and you started having a conversation. And you look back at yourself and you say, you know what? This person is dumb as bricks, but they got a doctorate degree, right? Think about it. How many times have you had an assignment where they told you to go and look up a dissertation and there's errors in it, right? How many times have you pulled up a dissertation and there's some dissertations out there that range from 60 pages to 400 pages? What makes them better? Guess what? Nothing. There's one thing that this dissertation has in common. It is an academic exercise. It is not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to be perfect. So all my A-type personalities that want to strive for the 4.0 GPA, right? You're going to keep it on your desk. You're never going to send it to your chair to get review. You're going to keep working on it. Guess what? You'll be in school longer than me. Because guess what? It's never going to be perfect. So let's lower our expectations. Let's just shrink our expectations. You're not going to save anything. Here's my challenge to everyone on this call. I want to see if you can name 5 people who will read your dissertation from cover to cover. We know you're going to read it, right? You got a 3-man committee. Your chair is going to read it because they're going to give you feedback throughout. Your subject matter expert is going to read it, right? Your academic reader is going to read it. That's 4. I bet you can't name me another person that's going to read this boring old document from cover to cover of 170 pages of something that you're the only person interested in. Y'all like, oh, my spouse loved me to death. They're going to read it. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're going to look at that book and say, maybe you are doing a great job. This is marvelous. And then you're going to peek over at them and you're going to say, what page you on, baby? Oh, this is the first page. This is the cover sheet. As far as they're going to get. Why? They ain't interested in that thing. You're the only one interested in it. They're not going to read it. So let's shrink our expectations. For all my education students out there, you are not going to write a dissertation that we're going to send to the Department of Education and the Secretary of Education, and they're going to read it, and they're going to get, like in the movies, right? You get this person that finally finds this document, and they come out and say, hey, we need to track this person down because they have the answer. That's not how this thing works. Write this down. The dissertation is not meant to fix or solve anything. I'm going to say it again because some people don't believe me. The dissertation is not meant to fix or solve anything. So what is it meant to do, Dr. Benders? It's only meant to give us one small little piece of information related to a topic. That's it. That's it. Yep, that's it. So I'm doing all this 150 pages and I'm not going to have an answer to anything? No, you're not. The only thing you're going to be able to say at the end of your study is this. The people who participated in my study responded like this regarding this issue. Because guess what? We take your same study 300 miles away and they may think of it totally different. We take your study in a whole nother area, they may not even be eligible to participate in your study. So let's shrink our expectations. Well, Dr. Benders, my study is so profound, I know I can do this, and this thing makes a lot of sense. But guess what? It doesn't fit everyone in the world. Everyone don't experience hurricanes. So if you're doing a study about hurricanes, guess what? There's a population that it don't fit. So therefore, you're not saving the world. So let's lower our expectations. Breathe. Think about this and say, I am only completing an academic exercise. So guess what? How do I get this thing done? Let's make it simple. Now that you understand what a dissertation is, you now need to understand how to complete it. And since you're not saving the world, I want you to think about it this way. I want you to meet expectations and move forward. Meet expectations and what? Move forward. I'm going to say it one more time. Meet expectations and move forward. Things people don't want you to know. This is not a random exercise where you can pull anything in and just throw it in there and say, oh yeah, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this and I want to do that. It's not how it works. Everything fits. Everything has to make sense. I like to use this example whenever I talk to my students. The dissertation is like a puzzle, right? So I'm gonna tell you this story. Me and my mom used to do puzzles together when I was a kid, and she'd always want to start on the outside borders. And I hated that. I really, really hated that because it just didn't make sense for me to find all these pieces and then just put them together. For me, logically, that didn't make any sense. I like to look for the part in the picture and then see what I can, oh, that's an eye. So I can find all the little pieces that fit for an eye. And I would take my little section and I would put my pieces together and then she'd put her pieces together. And then all of a sudden we'd eventually have the puzzle. It doesn't matter how you get there. You have to get there. And remember how when you were a kid, you used to try and take that puzzle piece and force it in there and it didn't fit? And people will always say, dude, that's the wrong piece. It fit, right? That is where we have struggles. And that's when we run into problems with this dissertation. We try to make things fit because we're trying to force our idea on this project. We're trying to force our idea on this project when we start to get information about how we've chosen our topic, how we've evaluated our problem, how the problem relates to the research questions, and all these different components start to fit together. There is no such thing of a perfect dissertation. It doesn't exist. Even those people who get the dissertations of the world and get these money and then go on and do great things in research and do this and do that, all this wonderful stuff. Yay! Guess what? Their stuff is still not perfect. The best dissertation is a done dissertation. The best dissertation is a done dissertation. So, where do we begin? Let's think before we start to write. Just like you do everything else, you kind of go through your own planning process, right? We want to start thinking, well, I want to do this project, and I want to do this project about, throughout my presentation, I'm going to give you some examples so that make sure that you understand how we're thinking about this, okay? We want to first start planning. Everyone on this call who's working on a dissertation, or not even at the dissertation phase yet, you already know, because of your graduate work with your master's or your pre-dissertation work, you already know the interest that you have on what topic you want to study. Some of you, if you think about it, if I talk to you right now in an individual way and I say, tell me what it is that you want to study, you're going to not only tell me the issue that you want to explore, but you're going to tell me how you think that issue will be solved or fixed. And guess what I told you already? The dissertation is not for you to do what? Fix anything. So what you already did, you've already set yourself up for failure. Because you're writing this and you're going to write it as a position. You're writing it to tell me and explain to me and convince me that you have the answer to this problem, that you have the way to why this makes sense. I reviewed one of my students' work this week, and she wants to do something with instructional coaching. And all she kept telling me is instructional coaching is going to help this. Instructional coaching is the greatest thing. Instructional coaches should do this. Instructional coaches went to PDs and they did this and they did this. This is why instructional coaches are very, very important. So more research needs to be done to better understand instructional coaches. If you already have the answer, what question are you going to answer? None. So let's start thinking about the process on how to get this thing done on the front end versus the back end. I know you always hearing people say, hey, you should go look at the literature. Hey, you should go look at the literature. Hey, you should go look at the literature. You know what that reminds me of when I hear that? I have kids. I have 3 children. And whenever they're getting on my nerves, I say, hey, go play outside. It's a beautiful day. Because really what I'm saying is, I want you to get out my face, right? I want you to go do something, right? That's the same thing that they're telling you. Because you're not given any direction on, I'm going to go look at the literature to do what? What am I going to understand? I'm just going in the literature. Type in, look at the literature. What is it exactly that I'm going to do? When you don't have an understanding of what it is that they want you to do, you're just going in there aimlessly doing the exact same things you're already programmed to do. Muscle memory. You're programmed to look at articles that fit what you're telling, what you already believe is the answer to this idea of what it is that you want to study. So you're already going in doing the position paper, which is not the dissertation. So your topic must be directly related to your degree program. I've had situations where I've dealt with students, and unfortunately, they were in education, but they were so very, very, very interested in the idea of personalities and learning abilities, learning disorders. And their focus was more psychology specific than education. Your degree program must be related to your topic. Why? Because your topic has to make a contribution to the literature. Okay? Your topic must make a contribution to the literature. The whole purpose of a dissertation is this. You're making a contribution to the literature. What needs to be known next about an idea? And if I already believe I have the answer, then I'm not going to do anything because I've already had the answer. Right? There's nothing new that we can learn about slavery. There's nothing new about that. So is that a worthy dissertation topic? No. The fact that there's no literature, no current literature about slavery, does that mean I should go and study it? No. You want to do a current contribution to the literature. Your topic must also be grounded in what is called an empirical problem. The problem, and this is not a presentation for a problem statement or understanding the problem statement. That's something that we'll have to look at, and maybe I'll do another presentation on a problem statement. This is the area where a lot of students get themselves in trouble. And I'm going to quickly touch on this. Students get themselves in trouble about the problem statement because they look at the issue as the problem. And when you're dealing with the issue, you find that the issue is very related to what it is that you're trying to study. And then you'll get that statement from your chair and say, well, this is not an empirical problem. Okay? Your problem, your topic must be grounded in empirical, data-driven evidence that demonstrate that this actually exists. And what this presentation is about is your topic must be feasible. So what does that mean? Feasibility is, in simplest forms, can I do this? Based on your study, do you have the reasonable access to your sample group? For example, I decided, you know what? Recently, we had the first African-American president of the United States. I'm going to do this qualitative phenomenological study to explore the leadership styles of the only African-American president of the United States. I think this topic is going to be a great topic. It probably is. I think this topic will be wonderful. It probably would. I think this topic is going to make such a contribution to the field because people of color and minorities groups are going to be so so happy, and they're going to learn. They're going to be so ecstatic about this, right? They possibly would be. But guess what? Do I have access to them, to him? Because he's the only person that I can have in my sample, right? And guess what the answer is? No, I don't. Even if I was his significant other, she barely probably got access to this man, right? So let's understand, who are we trying to gather data from? Who am I trying to make that connection to get my data information from? Yes, and we're talking about something that happened way in after chapter 3. So we've written 80 pages, and then we get to that point where we say, hey, I'm ready to go collect my data. And now let me go see if I can get this data from this person or people that I don't have access to. I'm going to do a study on Fortune 5 companies. No, you're not. You don't have access to Elon Musk, even if you was his cousin. Let's chill out. Minimize the expectations. Do not depend on those contacts or those hookups for access. Do not depend on those contacts or those hookups for access. Here's why. They can get a promotion and no longer be in that field or position when it's time for you to go get your stuff. And guess what that means? Woo! Now what you gonna do? You no longer have that person sitting there that was like, oh, girl, yeah, I'll give you access. You can come on in here and get this, collect data all you want, because I want you to get your doctorate degree. And now they done moved on up. They moved on up the ladder. And guess what? Now you're ready to collect. And you're going to send them that email. Hey, remember you told me I was going to get permission to do this study? And you know what they're going to say? I'm not doing that position no more. You got to go talk to such and such. And such is going to say, hey, I don't know you. I'm not giving you access. And now you're at what? Page 70, and you upset. So let's think about, do I have access to this population or sample group that I'm going to do that I'm going to do my study about before I start writing? Time. Time is a major factor. How many of y'all rather get done sooner rather than later, right? If I told you right now, I'm going to give you the answers, you're going to be able to finish this thing in 6 months. How many of y'all will call me right away? All y'all, right? Because we be ready to get up out of here, right? So then don't do anything that says longitudinal study. That doesn't make any sense. The word long is a part of the study. So don't even do that. If you see anything that says we need to do a longitudinal study, run the other way. Why take longer when you're paying for tuition? That makes no sense. You're paying to be here. No. Don't do it. Don't do it. Time is also a part of those people. Do you have access to that sample group? There's plenty of students that want to do international studies, right? Remember this, the IRB process, you have to be registered in a course in order to go through your IRB process. And if you're doing these international studies where you have to get permission from the Secretary of Interior or these other people or military people and things like that, that's going to take time. It's going to take time. So guess what? While they think that your request for access to them is sitting on their desk and they're over here having a good old time talking about the football game and talking about how Colorado got blown out, your paper is sitting there and guess what you're doing? You're paying tuition. And we want to do what? Save the world when we what? Not paying tuition. So let's make us do a study where time is not going to kill us. We're already up against the clock. So let's stop paying for it. Understand that. Is this going to be able to be completed in a reasonable amount of time? Cost. You're already paying tuition. So why incur cost on things like an instrument? Well, Dr. Benders, I really like this instrument. It really does everything I want. It really does this and it really does that. And I say to you, hey, guess what? Do you realize that it's going to cost you $200 just to get permission to use this instrument? And then you're doing a quantitative study and your G-Power tells you you have to get 250 participants. According to this instrument, it's going to cost you $10 per person that submits. You think you want to spend extra money because you like this instrument? Because guess what? There's 80 million other instruments out there that do the exact same thing that will get us done at a better cost. Free. There's instruments out there that are free. National University has the best library system that I've ever saw. Why? They can find instruments that does exactly what you're looking for, and they will say, hey, these are the free ones, and these are the ones that cost. Which one would you prefer? You're already paying tuition, so hey, let's help yourself out. Get some of this free stuff. Don't add cost. Don't tell me I'm living in the state of New Jersey and I'm going to do a dissertation study that's going to do a comparative analysis on people that live in New Jersey versus people that live in California versus how they access the internet. That means you got to fly over the country. And guess what? Then you're going to go all the way over there and that person's going to say, hey, we need to reschedule our interview. What you going to do then? Don't do a study that's going to be ridiculously at cost. You're already over budget. Many of us in graduate works are taking out student loans. Very few of us have what? Scholarships, right? Or paying out of our pocket. This thing is already expensive. Don't make it more expensive than it needs to be. In summary, when you address all of these different components and you start thinking about these things, you're going to better prepare yourself way before you start working on this academic exercise. Okay? You want to revise how you're thinking to minimize your expectations. Remember, save the world when you're not paying tuition. You will not be trapped by some of these unforeseen obstacles that most students don't consider. Like understanding, oh, my girl, my boy, my partner, my cousin, my aunt, they're the superintendent of the school district, and they're going to give me access. And then guess what? 3 months in, you go to the party and y'all celebrate because they got a promotion. And then you forgot, because you wasn't writing on your dissertation yet, that they said this. Think about all of these kinds of things. The number one challenge that students face is not having access to their sample group. These are some things. Time. Can I actually do this? Does this study, is it feasible for me to do this? Can I do this in a reasonable amount of time? But guess what? More importantly, if I can finish a dissertation, you can finish the dissertation. And I'm going to say that again. If I can do it, you can do it. And I want to see each of you at graduation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Benders, and we really appreciate your session on feasibility. We have time for some questions. We'll probably maybe do that for about maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll maybe closing a tad bit early. But first of all, I know that this is like, there's a lot of anxieties that go into getting this done and a lot of work that goes into it. So really appreciate hearing that message because it's empowering and it helps us understand that we too can do this. Couple of questions. Oh, lots of things going on in the chat. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your honesty. Appreciate that. What we'll do is, since we have a little bit of time, is I know Dr. Benders probably won't be able to speak to specific questions about your own dissertation topic, but we'll see if there is a question. And then if Dr. Benders is like, it's best to go to your chair, then that's what he'll recommend. And then just for the best flow, since there's about 45 on the call right now, if you could raise your hand using your Zoom hand, and then that way I'll be able to call on you and you can unmute. I also had several questions come up in the chat as well too. So we'll start with Christy, since you did raise your hand.
Thank you. My question is, why do they not offer this kind of information a lot sooner than now?
Okay. It's offered. Okay. The challenge is it's not offered in this modality, right? It's not the lesson for that week, right? There's a lot of things that you'll read throughout your academic career where someone probably said to you in a different way, this is not an academic exercise for you to save the world with. Just do a dissertation that you're interested in, right? But sometimes it comes in one ear and out the other because of how it's said, and that there was 8 other things that was on that conversation that were more important than them saying this one little bit, right? So a lot of times these topics, that's why this type of setup is so great, because it isolates specific parts of the dissertation process so that we can focus on that when we're talking about it, right? So I can focus on feasibility, because a lot of times feasibility don't come up really until you're at your IRB, because that's when IRB is really looking at feasibility. Is this a feasible study for you to be able to complete? Because the chair is responsible for making sure that you're meeting the expectations of the research process. So now you get to the feasibility. IRB is designed for you to, for them, their purpose is to protect the participants and the researcher from each other and from themselves regarding collecting the data. So although you have created this study, and it's a great study, and it will save the world in your opinion, right? And your chair is very, very excited because they ain't got to do it. They're not paying tuition. You're the one paying tuition. So you can do this for as long as you want. That ain't got nothing to do with me. So now you decide you want to go do a study that's going to talk to pregnant women who've been molested in prisons. IRB is the ones that's going to talk to you about the vulnerability of that population. Your chair may have mentioned it and said, well, you know, you want to do this study on this vulnerable population. However, this study is great because I think this really needs to come out. It's going to make a great contribution. It's your choice as the student to then say, you know what? I've learned about this because I remember talking to Dr. Benders or hearing this presentation about feasibility. And now I haven't written anything, but I'm talking about my topic. So now I can realize it doesn't say you can't do it. You just need to understand how long that process is going to be as compared to somebody else. So these things are all talked about in various different ways, just maybe not as direct as this.
Yeah, and I do appreciate this moment. And Christy, I appreciate your question. And I'm grateful that we are able to have the Scale Up series where we can have targeted pinpoint topics that help our students with the dissertation process, or maybe their master's program as well too. But I wanted to mention as well, Jenna Johnson, one of my colleagues, she just posted a link for a feasibility checklist. So please do check that out. It's a pretty neat resource for you to kind of say yes or no for some of those as well. Okay, I know there are some other questions. Let me slide this over here. Why do high expectations cause trouble when you're doing the dissertation? And you can give your personal opinion on that, Dr. Benders. High expectation cause trouble when doing your dissertation.
The reason why it causes so much challenge is because really you're not receptive to any change and any change to the topic, right? So sometimes you're biting off more than you need to chew, and you don't really need to go that far because you want to make this contribution. You want to make your dissertation have such an impact. And then when it doesn't have that impact, you're like, well, why didn't it have this impact? Because you never even get that far because you create so many obstacles going down that path. The expectations causes a challenge because sometimes you're overdoing it, or you're paying for an instrument because you think this is a better instrument when your research questions are this small. It's like looking at and dealing with a big elephant. How do we eat a big elephant? One bite at a time, right? But it's a small bite. We're not trying to fix it all, okay? I did a study 4 years ago. And in this study, I asked people, would they want to work from home? And 90% of my participants said, absolutely not. I would not want to work from home. That is not the ideal place for me to work because I'm never going to get anything done. I'm going to lose my job. I did that exact same study again recently. And guess what? 98% of my participants said, I'm never going back into a building. Does it mean that my research study was not valid? No. Does it mean that my research study was not good? No. It is a snapshot of one bit of time and only the people who participated in my study. So if I'm only getting that small bit of information, there's 8 billion people in the world. You're only going to collect data if you do a qualitative study, maybe 25 people. So if I'm only going to talk to 25 people, am I going to get a whole general glimpse of what the issue is with this? No. So having these big expectations just causes challenges because all we really want to do is this. All we really want to do is this. You want to write a big book? Guess what? Write it when you can sit at home and write it without paying tuition.
And thank you so much, Dr. Benders. There was when you mentioned that piece about like, write it at this, write about this. And then can't this then unfold into your suggestions for future research?
That is what it's all about. The whole point of a dissertation is this. The articles in the peer-reviewed journal articles that you read are about the topic that you're interested in, okay? The gap in the literature, the recommendation for future research, that is what you're supposed to be doing, okay? That is the study that needs to be done next. What you're doing, I mean, what the articles have done is what is already known. We know all of this. Your job is to find out what needs to be done next or what needs to be learned next about this idea. Because when I've done this study, right, I did this study about police brutality. And when I did this study about police brutality, I thought police hated African-American men. But what I found was police are being taught a certain way to respond to a certain thing because they too want to go home. So when I did my study, I came up with my conclusions. And then I said, anybody who's interested in studying police brutality, you need to get a better understanding on how the community views the act of me using a baton on someone who I view as bereaved. Because this is what they're taught to do first. You never looked at it through that lens. But because I've learned something about this topic, I'm telling you what needs to be done next. And that is what you do. But that's not what happens. I'm so programmed and I'm so focused on my big expectation. I want to write this dissertation on why we're going to defund the police. So because I'm going to write about defunding the police, I skip over what they're telling me to do and I keep pushing my agenda and it causes problems. And you're at page 80 and then somebody says to you, hey, this is really not grounded in the literature. And now you're mad.
And that actually is like the perfect segue into my next question is we're supposed to pick something that we're passionate about. What are some of your recommendations about not making it too personal? How do you do that in the dissertation process?
It's not about not making it personal. The challenge is the study that you may be recommended to do may not be recommended in the way that you thought it was going to be. Like my example that I just said. If I first started when I met my chair and I'm like, hey, we need to defund the police. I'm going to do this dissertation study about defunding the police. So I go to the journals and I'm looking at all these articles and then I find this recommendation for research. And the recommendation for research states additional research needs to be done to better understand how people view police brutality. How do the public view police brutality? I don't care how they view it. I want to defund the police. And that's where we get into problems. And that's where we get into challenge. Because we'll start writing initially. And if you read some of these dissertations, it happens this way a lot. You'll start writing initially about, well, I'm going to look at how people look at the view of police brutality. And then everybody who looked at police brutality, they're back up here to defund the police. So I'm going to get that in. I'm going to constantly use my passion and put it there. But your passion is about the idea of police brutality, not just the small part of defunding. Because there's a lot of different parts of police brutality. It's police brutality for men. Women get beat up too. Women, white, green, orange, yellow, animals. Everybody get beat up by the police. So it's not just police brutality because I'm an African-American man. It's just about me. It's how I want to defund the police because I went to this rally one day and it really touched my spirit. No. What is the literature telling me to do? That is what you're supposed to do. So yes, you can still be passionate, just not in the same way that you thought you were going to start it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Benders. I appreciate that. So many people have said thank you so much for your passion and for your energy and honesty. And we really appreciate you. And thank you so much for coming to tell us about this very important sliver of the dissertation process focused on feasibility. So,
You're very welcome.
and until the next time, I hope you all have a great rest of your day and good luck to everybody.
Absolutely. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.